Welcome to the walkthrough video for Walker upright bass. This is a remarkable instrument, a 200-year-old bass belonging to Hein van der Geijn, who is a legend of legends in the jazz scene. A Dutch bassist, prolific in the 80s and 90s, playing with absolute legends of jazz, Lee Konitz, Toots Thielemans, many others, and most notably Chet Baker. He toured with Chet Baker in Tokyo. It's an album out called Chet Baker in Tokyo. Hein's on that beautiful album. Hein was also Chet Baker's final bassist, so that's a real big feather in his cap. So, but he's a phenomenal human and a phenomenal musician. This bass was also mixed by Hein's long-term engineer, Chris Wieder, who mixed the bass, who knows the bass so well over 30 years of playing together and performing. So that's the heritage that comes with this bass, and our project here and our mission was to create an upright sample library that blows all others out the water. That's like no other library you've heard before. So that is our mission, and I hope we've achieved that. So let's jump in. This is a walkthrough video, so it will be quite technical, showing you the ins and outs, and I'll be playing a bit and show you what the bass is all about. So let's go have a look. The first thing you'll notice is this slider here. So this is your fingerboard slider, your hand position slider. And what I like to do is just assign it to a MIDI controller, and then I can move up and down here quite freely. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with string instruments and their nature, the thing that makes these instruments so different to the piano, for example, are that the same note can appear in different locations on the fretboard. So we've got an A here, same A here, and the same A here. And each time you hear the timbre, the sort of quality of the note changes ever so slightly. So up here at the top of the neck, it's nice for, at the body at least, it's nice for, ballads. And then a bit further down, nice open, fat, slightly brighter tone. So that's the nature of what we're dealing with here. Let's have a look at the keyboard here. You'll see lots of colors. So the first thing you'll notice are the red buttons here. These are our articulation key switches. So we've got sustain and then slide and hammer on and pull off. And we've got falls. And then these soft notes, which are really beautiful for double stops. And then we've got harmonics. It's a nice selection of key switches here and articulations. Let's have a look at these performance buttons down here, because this is going to tell you a lot about how you are going to approach this bass. So the first button you'll see here, these are open strings. So no matter where you are on the bass, say you're playing up here, nice warmer tones, you can always play an open note at any point, but your hand position will remain the same. Then the next button here is follow. So this allows your hand position to naturally follow the fretboard. So wherever you're playing on the bass, it will move. It's quite a very natural way of playing, and that's the most natural way that we play as string instruments like that. We move up and down the fretboard quite freely. The next button here is a keyboard mode. So mostly what will happen is if you're playing a different note on the same string, The second note will obviously, kill the first note. So you'll only hear one note when you do that. I'm holding two notes here. But in keyboard mode, you'll be able to just freely play proper chords that you wouldn't be able to literally on the bass. So that just puts it in keyboard mode. I thought that was a nice feature, seeing that we are using keyboards to trigger this instrument. So this button here is vibrato, and you can click it with your mouse, or it's assigned to mod wheel as well. And we've painstakingly recorded a real vibrato for each note. So it's quite subtle, and on some of the notes you'll hear a bit of creaking. Really beautiful vibrato we recorded there. Hein, such a legend, so great. Let's have a look at these sliders here. So release, these are release samples for each note. Let's exaggerate it. And obviously that's maybe a bit loud, but that adds a nice realism. So that's been our goal with this bass, is to create as much realism as possible. Our room tone, so each microphone has its own room tone. It's quite subtle here. Yep, just to give a bit of feel. And then move, just add some movement sound, especially if you're moving up from a hand position into a different hand position. So it's quite a nice, again, as much realism as possible, as it's possible in these instruments. That's been a goal. This button here, let's leave this for just now. I'll show you what this is about, but basically it's stereo output or multiple output out of Kontakt. Here we have our preset button. So as a default, we've got 10 different defaults here, and we start with a Hein default Chris Wheater mix. And we've got a modern setting, old school, and then various other settings for you to check out. You can also save your own preset and then recall that at any time you want. So that's the preset manager there. The next icon here we have is your right hand finger plucking selector. So by default here we have your index finger, or you can select your middle finger. Subtle difference, but just those differences are the difference between a really good sounding instrument and a good sounding player, these subtle differences that they choose. One thing we did add here is that if you're playing the same note in quick succession, then naturally you may alternate your finger as you play. So we've decided that would be a very cool thing, just to be able to alternate your finger position there. The next icon here, we have your curve. This is velocity input curve. So by default, we have just a very straight velocity. The velocity you play on your keyboard will obviously come through. And then here we can then favor lower velocities. So it will push the lower velocities down, and then we can still get your full attack. But it's nice to have that softer control sometimes. And then we can push that up all the way too. So we just get full velocity attack on that too. The next icon here is our pedal. So our pedal is connected to slide. So this allows us to, while we're playing, to just engage the slide articulation very quickly and intuitively. You'll also notice this little slider to the left. This is a slide speed indicator. By default, it's set to an eighth note. It's also connected to your pitch bend, so wherever your pitch bend goes, your slide speed will go. And we've got it set to default to an 8th note. And then we can go down to a quarter note or up to a 16th. And they'll sound better depending on what tempo you're playing at and what tempo your session is. So you want to use that carefully, but an 8th is normally a great place to start. So we've got that set as the default. Also, your fall will have different speed as well. Also set by the pitch bend. So that allows us to just give versatility depending on the tempo. And again, realism as much as possible in this bass. That was our goal from the get-go. Let's have a look at the mix window. We've got the mix and the FX window. So let's look at the mix window here. You'll notice we've got 6 channels of audio, all independent of each other. This setting here basically purges your samples if you're not using the channel. So in this case, we weren't using it, purged it, but I want to just demonstrate each one of these channels to you so you can see what they are. We've got the DI, which is direct injection. Here we've got mute and solo. So let's just solo this for you. So this is your direct injection, your direct mic. We've got a close mic here, which is sort of set by the F-hole. And then a stereo mic, also close. Then a mid mic, which is kind of warm and slightly boxy. And then room, far room. And then a room stereo. And you'll notice that stereo mic sounds very wide. It's actually mid-side setup. But let me just demonstrate this to you quickly if I mute these channels. And so now I've got the room and the room wide. It's just this nice width and this beautiful warmth to the tone. So those are our mic setups and really easy to use. And then you can save those setups as you go as well. And obviously purge the samples you aren't using to save RAM and CPU and all of that. So let's just go back to our high setting. You go, it just snaps into place. Let's have a look at our effects here. So we've kept the effects as simple as possible and as clean as possible. It's an upright bass. It doesn't need anything fancy. So we've got some compressor, which we've got at a very slow attack, so you can still hear that nice click. It's a bit drastic. Pull it back. Without. So it just adds a nice body, a bit more sustain, a bit gentler on the attack. So that's really nice. Nice setting to have. Reverb, we've kept it very, very simple. I mean, a double bass in a context, you're not really going to put reverb on too much, but it does. It adds nice color. So we've got that, you know, you might be using it in a more intimate arrangement, and so that's a nice feature to have. And then obviously we had to add a bit more fat sub. Those occasions when it requires it. Tone is set to light and dark. Basically, light is just pushing some of the higher partials. And then dark is pulling those back a bit. Nice, smooth chocolate flavor coming through in that tone. Dirt, now that should be used with extreme caution. And we've got a little preset here, the MMW Dirty, inspired by Medeski, Martin and Wood, for those of you who know them. So it's a fun preset that. And that brings us to this setting here, which is the stereo out or multiple channel out. So in stereo out, I will have to just change this view so that we can have a better look at what's going down. So these are our Kontakt outputs. And if we're in stereo output view, you'll notice that there's channel 1 and 2 are out. So that's our main Kontakt output there. There are times when we want to take all the channels and export them and mix them ourselves within our DAW. And in that case, let me just turn on these other mics here. We can then put multiple channel output, and then you'll see they're all coming out of different channels. What we are hearing though is only the stereo 1 and 2, because we don't have it routed out in the other way. But essentially, there are 6 channels of output that bypass the volume, and they also bypass the effects channels here. So it's a direct out, and then you can do your own mix on the bass, you can add your own effects, and be fully in control of your sound that you want. So yeah, so we've included that for you. Let's pop it back into stereo mode. We can close this window here. That is basically the Walker upright bass, an absolutely beautiful bass, something that we strive to bring the most natural sound possible to the bass, and that's what we've done in this case. Every decision we've made has been to bring the infinite into the finite. So that's nature of an upright bass, is an infinite instrument, and in a digital format it is finite, so it's very, very challenging and difficult to do. But that's what we've attempted to do here, and I think you'll be very well pleased with the Walker upright bass. Thanks for watching.